Now that you've started to plan and outline your content, how long should your episodes be? Well, that depends. I know that's not a great answer, but that's really what it boils down to. Think about how much time you can realistically commit to the production process. Will you be able to plan, research, record, edit, and distribute your podcast in a timely, consistent manner? Do you want this to be a daily podcast, a weekly podcast, or even something that releases every 2 weeks? With that said, I'd target for 30 minutes or less in the beginning, especially if you don't have that much experience with editing. When we first started They Reminisce Over You, we weren't as strict with the timing and ended up with the first episodes being over 2 hours long, and the editing process was stressful, especially being a beginner. While a lot of the software that we're going to discuss in a later video can be easier to use once you get used to it, there can be a steep learning curve if you're someone who isn't necessarily tech savvy. Once you get a little more comfortable and you get into a workflow that works for you, then you can look at lengthening your episodes. But don't do it just for the sake of doing it. If you can get out what you need to say in 15 minutes, then you have a 15-minute show. Just be sure to focus on quality over quantity and only extend your episodes if it makes sense for your show. If you find that you have a lot of content that doesn't need much editing like an interview, then you can consider releasing longer episodes as long as it fits into your production schedule. Be sure to consider your release schedule and how often you want to put out new episodes. It's also important to consider the content of your show and whether it's time sensitive. If your podcast is a recap that covers a TV show airing on Sunday nights or a recap of current events, it might make sense to release your episodes around those specific times. On the other hand, if your show isn't time sensitive, then you have more flexibility in terms of when you want to release your episodes. Hey, there's no one size fits all answer for this because the best day to release your podcast will depend on your specific goals and your audience. Here are a few things to think about when deciding on a release date for your show. Your production schedule. Choose a release day that works with your schedule and allows enough time for you to plan, research, record, edit, and distribute your episodes. Think about your target audience. When do your listeners have time to listen to your show? For example, if your target audience is working professionals, they might have more time to listen to podcasts on the weekends or during their commute to and from work. Experiment with different release days. Try releasing your episodes on different days and see how your listeners respond. You can use analytics to track your download numbers and see which days are more popular for your show. When we first started, we released our episodes on Tuesday mornings. After a while, we noticed that our biggest days in terms of downloads were actually Thursday through Sunday. So we switched to a Friday release date, and that's been working for us. In the end, the best day to release your podcast is the one that works best for you and your audience. So don't be afraid to experiment and see what works best.